truth must pass through three stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. And third, it is accepted as being self-evident. Today, I want to tell you a story about truth. There was once a college professor who came before his class and gave them a challenge. This challenge was to write a 500 to 600 page book in the course of a semester. But this book had a lot of stipends. It had to be teeming with appropriate literary components, various accurate names, historical, economic, military histories, and local histories, and geographical evidences, and it had to be covered the course of over 1,000 years. Also, there could be no contradictions in the book, and it had to be passed off as truth. Sounds ridiculous, right? And it was. No one ever took the professor up on this challenge, but he made the challenge to prove a point. Hugh Nibley, in the Prophetic Book of Mormon, writes about this challenge, which he made as the professor. He made this challenge to tell people that the Book of Mormon is true. What is the Book of Mormon, you might ask? The Book of Mormon is a religious text read by members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It talks about people in the ancient Americas and their religious dealings with God. It begins with a family who travels from ancient Jerusalem to the American continent. And it was written or translated, depending on your point of view, by Joseph Smith Jr., a poor farm boy with very little education in a period of a few months. Compare the two. College student, more education, older, longer time than the poor farm boy. So, why am I talking about this to you today? The Book of Mormon has blessed my life, and I know that it can bless your life. But I don't want to talk about the spiritual truth today. I want to talk about how it is historically authentic. And there are literally thousands of evidences out there for its authenticity. But due to time, I just want to talk about one, the Lachish letters. The Lachish letters was, according to Oxford University's Biblical Studies and Hugh Nibley's Dark Days, some documents written on potsherds in the city Lachish, which is about 30 miles from Jerusalem. These potsherds contain stories about Jerusalem's destruction at a time that was exactly the same as the start of the Book of Mormon. When were the Lachish letters discovered? In the 1930s, about 100 years after the Book of Mormon first was published. So, first of all, I want to talk to you about a name, some historical consistencies, and a person. What is the name? Josh. Josh was something that antis used to argue against Joseph Smith. In the book, The Dark Days by Hugh Nibley, this professional scholar, he talks about that same name in the Lachish letters, Josh. In fact, it was the most common used name in the Lachish letters. Who was the person named Josh? A military leader. Who was the person named Josh in the Book of Mormon? A military leader. Now, it's easy to mark that up as a coincidence, so I just want to make another point. According to USU Institute teacher and professor, the Book of Mormon had 180 names that were unique at the time of its publication. Well, of those 180 names, we now know that every single one of them has Hebraic, Egyptian, or Almec roots. Crazy, right? And that's what the Book of Mormon should be written in. Okay, so what else does the Lachish letters show? In the Lachish letters, the family, there's various groups of families, and this is also in Nibley's Dark Days. These families leave Jerusalem, they get away and they build temples. Well, that same thing happens in the Book of Mormon. Also something which people said was not possible. After all, We don't know that happened. It couldn't be. Therefore, the Book of Mormon is false. Well, it did happen. Families left Jerusalem and they built temples. This family left Jerusalem and they built a temple. Same thing. Now I want to talk to you about one more thing, and it's a boy. The boy was supposedly the grandson, possibly of Zedekiah, and he was sent to give a warning to the king. He could have escaped the city. All of his family would have died. Now, that's from the Lakish letters. In the Book of Mormon, it talks about a boy who escaped from the city. He was the grandson or grandnephew of Zedekiah, and his name was Mulek, meaning little king. Same story, very similar circumstances. Now, I want you to know there's various components, historically authentic, that can build up in a large stack, showing the truth of the Book of Mormon. But inevitably, it's up to you to decide. Is the Book of Mormon true? Read it and find out.